What's important to you? My mission is to ask as many people as possible this question, because I believe once you know what's important, you can design and build a life of purpose, meaning, and fulfillment. My name is James Dean. I'm a life coach, and I hope this podcast inspires you to uncover what's important to you. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at James Dean Coaching, or connect with me on LinkedIn. You can also learn how I can help you understand what's important at 𝗤𝗲𝘁𝗕𝑂𝘁.com. Today's guest is the CEO and founder of Weighless Wonders. They offer a holistic approach to helping their members understand their weight loss journey by tackling the habits that cause people to react and act towards food. She likes to share her experiences with others as a way of helping them understand that this is a period of time and it too shall pass. What is very important to her is having empathy. She has had a lot of traumas and struggles in relation to food, and it's important to her to be a cheerleader for other people and have an understanding of where they may be in the journey of their life. She believes it costs nothing to be kind and thoughtful in this world. Today, we find out what's important to Caraldine Nolan. Hi, Caraldine. Thank you so much for joining me today.
No problem, James. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to chatting to you. So, as the start with any podcast that I do, any episode, Caraldine, the first question is, what's important to you?
Do you know, I've been thinking about this for a long while. I have a lot of things that's really important to me. And as a mom, I have my children are kind of getting to that all different levels where I have a daughter now who's just about to finish the leaving, and I have a son who's in first year and he's all cool now. And then I have like, a sixth class little boy. And one of the things I keep kind of ringing home to them all is family, and treat each of you all are the same. And you know what I mean? No matter what your skill set or your levels, and I've been really thinking about like even all of my friends or my colleagues and empathy. I appear to have a lot of empathy for people, and when I'm speaking to people about a situation or even my own children at home here, it appears to be like a very big word to me that you have to be um be very aware of somebody's feelings. And
Mm.
although that can come across in lots of different ways, I've gone through an awful lot of experiences. And sometimes I suppose if somebody was listening to me, their mouth would be kind of open wide and saying, how could somebody possibly go through all of that? Or if there was a queue of someone coming up at a name, and I'm going, oh, that happened to me. Ah, yeah, that's me. I was like one of those people. But then um, after a while, I realized that all of the things that I've had that happened to me, which I'll go through with you in a minute, have
Mm.
all made me stronger. But I always say to my mom, I'm very outspoken. So like sometimes I can come across as vocal, that kind of way. So I'm kind of sternish, kind of not phased, but like, I call myself the rapid defense unit. So if somebody says something to me, I would come across a little bit straight away as defensive. But in
Okay.
fact, I'm such a deep thinker and I would take so much to heart. It's like the complete opposite. But I would think about everything. So even if I said I would think about every little thing and every about a person, I never meet a person and don't go away and have a think about them. Even if it's their business. It's like I rang a girl before here and I'd met her last night, and I've been really fortunate to be on the No Frontiers. Have you ever heard of that
Yep.
program with the Leo?
Yeah.
So I met it onto that with an innovation idea that I had. And I met a girl last night and I said to her last night, I said, listen, ring me tomorrow. So she'd announced her idea, and by today at lunchtime, we've got her into a new premises and with three other business ideas for her, all got to do with her business. Nothing to do with me, but I
Yeah.
just love helping others and seeing that she was kind of in the struggle last night. She couldn't see past something, and this premises thing was a big thing. And I was like, I know somewhere
Mm.
in my like I know there is. So, and I think that's very important. But that can be a fun side of it. But then I've also been through a lot of trauma, and I think
Mm.
it's very important. I won an award um last March, and I won it for it was the AIB Businesswoman of the Year Awards for Network Ireland, and I won it for the Power Within category for Dublin. And that really, I had to do an interview. And during that interview, you have to take stock and look about what you've been through. And it's not
Mm.
you were in competition with anybody, because you're not, because your story is yours and yours to tell. And I remember when I had kind of won my award, I told my story, or a piece of my story about how my life changed for me. And I remember an editor came up to me from a newspaper and he said, "You're extremely authentic. You can't buy what you have or what you've just done. You have to tell that story and you have to keep telling it." And I remember loads of people kept coming up to me afterwards and saying, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like, how did you continue to keep going after so much trauma or so much things that happened?" And I honestly think it's because my mindset changed, and I think that's
Okay.
really important. So you know that I'm in the health and wellness business, and I own a company at the moment called Weighless Wonders, which you've just mentioned. And I started off Weighless Wonders after Weight Watchers left Ireland last year, so I was a coach. And obviously, when we all start off our life in whatever age you are, I became a mammy very, very young. And when I became a mammy, I had I have 3 children, as I said. And when I had my two little boys, both of them had additional needs, so they were premature, and they came with a long, 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 long list. One of them with 27 operations to his name. And after I had my son, my last son, I had him in the February, and by January I'd lost my womb to the precancerous cells. And only a short time later after that, I had a gallbladder removed, and what I was told was adhesions. But I honestly, I think I allowed an organ to be removed from my body for nothing at this stage. When I think back, I would have done anything. I was in a lot of pain. And
Mm.
then only several months after that, again, I had got a perforated bowel. So I am the full-time owner of a colostomy bag, which I have no problem owning at all. I actually have an ileostomy bag. I have no problem with and if anybody of your members ever has one or is in need of one, they can contact me, because I'm a huge advocate for it, for health. So with all of the trauma, and my son, who at the time was only 10 months old, he was
Mm.
actually after spending nearly the first 10 months in hospital, because he was after, at the time we didn't realize it was stroke. We didn't know what was wrong with him. So
Right.
he was after having so many he was after having a couple of operations at this stage, but not a lot. And nobody knew what was wrong with him. He was premature, and that was about it. And he was feeling all different feelings off me, and there was lots of um, people saying that I was imagining maybe that he was feeling the sense of not feeding properly because mommy's nervous and he's
Mm.
just a very sick baby. But he got me meningitis, he got measles, he got whooping cough, and his arms were turned in, which he wasn't born like that, and his legs were turned in, and there was a lot of hospital fault, an actual quite a lot of hospital fault, until the doctor who actually hand delivered the child, who had actually delivered him, came into a hospital one day and seen me with him, and said he was not born like that. And
Mm.
that's when things started to change. I was very fortunate. My other son had cerebral palsy, and I had gone to the doctor in Enable Ireland, and I had told her I was starting to lose my marbles. So uh,
Mm.
I'm very self-aware, and I was losing my marbles. I was about to have a nervous breakdown at that point, and I went the whole way, and I had a psychosis and everything, and I was admitted into hospital. But obviously, you have to remember, I've had 2 premature births, 2 very ill children, both on machines and in hospitals,
Mm.
and I had had cancerous cells and operations, and gee, because you'd swear I was going into hospital getting an organ out for a break, like that kind of way.
Yeah.
And then and then obviously I got my colostomy bag, which was a huge
Yeah.
shock to my system. Um, and obviously when you lose your womb, and I wasn't even 30 at that stage, so I was never going to have any more children. I wasn't even 30, and so I had a nervous breakdown in the March, and then I got Declan got to come home after we'd kind of nearly got ourselves sorted with a Jack and Jill nurse. And oh my God, that was amazing for us as a family, because we were able to have a little break. And because I was 5 days a week with my other son in Enable Ireland. So I had 2 sons who actually walked same time of each other. There was a week
Okay.
apart. a week apart of the two of them walking. One was 3, which was the older boy. He walked when he was 3.
Yeah.
And even though the other lad had all these problems, he didn't walk till later on in life. And I remember, but Declan was still tube fed. So he was in nappies till he was 7 and tube fed for up until around the same period of time. Maybe he was a bit older on the tube feeding. He got a peg in his stomach. But I remember, and this is really important, I suppose, factor in my life, because Declan, I think, was on operation about 24, and I was kind of crying a lot at home. When I
Yeah.
used to be at home, I was still over the nervous breakdown, but I was feeling hard done by as a person. I
Yeah.
was coming from Laois up to the big smoke and area and met not really any major friends, and how could God be so cruel to do this to me with the children? And I'm stuck at home, and I wanted to be somebody, and did he not know I wanted to be somebody? And do you know what I mean? And I
Mm.
was passing all these tubes, and I just remember crying on the floor of my, like, I'm in my house as I'm talking to you here now, and this floor has seen a lot, that kind of way.
Yeah.
And I always get really emotional when I say that, and even as I'm talking to you, my eyes
Yeah.
well up, because this floor has seen a lot of different Caraldines, do you know, that kind of way.
Yeah.
And they have seen children who have been very ill and resuscitated and be amazing now. And I remember I think he was about operation 24. I'm not 100% sure, but he was he always had this thing of he couldn't just go in and have an operation. He had to have an operation plus give me a heart attack in the meantime. You know what I mean? So we went in, and there was this he of course, anyway, he went up to ICU afterwards. He was after getting I think it was all, I can't remember the operation time, but I'm nearly sure it was all 10 toes broken, the backs of his legs done, the tendons released. um it was something major anyway. And
Yeah.
anyway, he was up there, and they said give him a break and let him breathe. At this time, it hadn't even been copped that he had a cleft palate, that's what was causing all these feeding issues. He was 5 or 6 at this stage, by the way. He was 5, I think. So all the time he'd spent in hospital and all the mammy's feeling it, the child had a cleft palate all along. No one ever copped it.
Wow.
So I remember I was in a room in the room, and there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do, right? If you're ever sitting in hospital, I spent months in hospitals, so I'm a walking dictionary of ailments. I know
Yeah.
I even know what's going to happen, and if they're going to be grand or not grand, that kind of way. And
Mm.
sometimes that can come across as, I don't know. But I remember this lady came in she was in ICU as well, and I heard the nurse saying pyloric stenosis. I don't know. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
So it's when a valve turns backwards on a baby's tummy. And the baby be grand now, but it's really sick at the moment. At that moment, to just bring him down, 20 minutes, job
Yeah.
done, back up, it'd be grand. Normally happens in boys. And like, as you can see, like, I know it, like,
Yeah.
and then comes the mum, and I heard her say it's grand, but I also heard them saying 32 weeks. And I know from what can happen that your baby's perfect, and then all of a sudden something bad can happen.
Mm.
You don't want to tell it to somebody, but this girl looked like me. And I remember looking at her going, oh my God, she needs her mammy. And oh my God, I sat there, and I just remember when I had my first premature baby, and I cried and cried and
Mm.
cried. And it wasn't an emotional thing, but James, it's very hard as you get older as a person and you have a child. You're looking for your mammy, and you've just become a mammy yourself.
Yeah.
And there's no one you can explain that feeling to, but you're vulnerable. You are very, very vulnerable. And you feel stupid because doctors start talking to you all these big words and mention tubes and syringes and all these different things. And sure, it's all gone over your head. And in between all of that, they might hand you a photograph, and you can't even see the child, and they might say express for the photograph. You know what I mean? Like,
Wow.
it's really like a very traumatic experience. But I
Yeah.
just remember she was actually Indian, but at this present moment, she did not look Indian. Like, her
Yeah.
lovely color skin was gone. This was so afraid. And my son always asks me a question. Every time there's an operation, he got this, and he says to me before the operation, and I'm supposed to give him the answer after. So his question was, before he went down, he said, Mammy, is there more windows or doors in the world? That
Oh,
was the
jeez.
question. And so no, sorry, I beg your pardon. Was there more wheels or
Yes.
doors? And I said, what? And of course, like, I was being the grumpy Caraldine, like I was, I'm stuck in the hospital, I could be at home, do better things. And I remember, like, so I never looked up, I never did the answer or anything like this. And I got so caught up in this lady. And I said to her, do you want to go? Because the child was on, was like, it was on, it was being, the breathing machine was doing the work
Yeah.
for him. I can't say the word, sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really harsh, like, it's really harsh. And so both of our children were in the same predicament, right? They were having a break. So I remember walking down the corridor with her, and for some reason I just kept walking through all the doors. And I don't know if you've ever had to walk through Crumlin, but in Crumlin there's nothing but doors, and even
Yeah.
along the doors is all of these little houses with doors. So I'm walking down along these all these doors, and I'm looking and I'm like, oh my god, this poor girl, and she just hasn't stopped crying the whole way down. And I'm like, don't worry, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. And I was going down the road in my head, and I said, it's time you said something to somebody here now, like, make something of yourself now, and cop onto yourself. What
Mm.
would you like someone to say to you? And I remember we sat down in the canteen and I took her hands, and I knew I couldn't lie to her, but I didn't want to frighten her
Mm.
either. And I remember going down through all the doors. So we were just before St. John's Ward. So you can imagine I was after coming down through every ward, knowing I was in every single one of them. And
Wow.
I said to her, but that's when my life changed, because I looked at her and I said, pyloric stenosis is grand. Like, and that's the way I said it, like, grand. Baby's grand. Just having a little break there like they always do. And I said, Annie's prem. But at 32 weeks, I can't tell you that everything will be okay. But I can tell you one thing. I don't even know where this came out. I said, I can tell you one thing, that I have been through every door in this hospital, and every door bar one. And I want you to remember this always. And I said, every door in this hospital gives you hope. They can
Mm.
fix it. There is a chance to fix it, and they can help. There is one door that you can go through, there's no answer to. And at the moment, both of us are sitting here with tears in our eyes, praying to God and thinking we're in the worst situation. We're not at that door yet.
Yeah.
Neither of us are at that door yet. We still have hope. There's choice. There's change for every one of us. There's something to help us. And I swear to God, she just started crying and crying. And it was just like, and I said, but everything will be okay. And I don't know if I was saying it to her for her, or
Yeah.
saying it for myself, because I realized that I'd been so annoyed with myself, but in fact, I had come through many doors, loads
Mm.
of doors. I was now in social circles that have buzz clubs for children with dyspraxia. I was in Enable Ireland's with the most wonderful parents 5 days a week that are now our lifelong friends. I was in Special Olympics football for my son. I have done so much amazing things in the last, well, definitely in the last few years. And this woman had actually had an opportunity to be part of something that she never knew existed if something did happen in the
Sure.
next few weeks. And I think that was important. And I remember she went, I said, you need to have a cup of tea and you need to make sure you sleep, because things seem so much worse when you don't sleep, hence why I had the nervous breakdown. And I was well able to do, I didn't say that to
Yeah.
her either, that kind of way. She went away and she came back the next day or whatever, but I had gone back to the room and my son woke up and he said, well, ma. And I went, I'm not your ma. If you're from anyone from Dublin, they get called a ma, and I hate it, right? Because it reminds me of, I can't deal with it. He goes, well, ma. And I went, ma'am, what's the answer? And I said, well, every time I open the press door, there's a chance I'll get something else. But every time I look at the wheels, I'll just keep going around in circles. So I'm going to guess the answer and hope that it's a door. Because every time I open the door, there'll be something, chance of something new. And I just changed. I literally left the hospital happy. I met that girl that same day, and she had her lovely colour back, and she said, oh my God. I said, take my number. I'm already there, that kind
Yeah.
of way in the circles. And look at my son, look at him now. Yes, it was scary yesterday for both of us. Look at him now. He's going home tomorrow. We're going back down to it. We went to Michael's ward for or Joseph's for the breaks and whatever it was that day. And he was home 2 days later, that kind of way. And her actual child was perfect, I think, in the end. It was just the pyloric stenosis, which is not a just if you're a new parent listening to
Yeah.
this, by the way, it's frightening. And I think that's very important, because I came home and I said to my husband, I had gained a lot of weight in this period of time. And I said, I'm getting my life together. That's a lot for one person to say to somebody. And it's big words, because that
Mm.
means you have to own it,
Yeah. Well,
you know?
yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, obviously, thank you so much for sharing, and I didn't want to interrupt you because I wanted to hear it all from where you wanted to share it, and so much And even just what was the way you was telling the story is the you could look at it and one people say is that the way you started, how things can happen to you,
Mhm.
and how these things, as you say, that just keep coming and keep coming. Um,
And it was
I,
5 years. All that happened in
wow.
5 years.
Yeah.
So it was like EastEnders. It was
Yeah.
like I keep saying if somebody asks to write my autobiography, they couldn't put the 2
Ye
thumbs at the start of it. They couldn't, like, it had to be
yeah.
because at one stage, even in the verge of when I was on my nervous breakdown, I remember sitting with a beautiful Dr. MacDonald, and she is a testament to what she does, and she said to me, she said, "Do you think?" It was always, "What did I think?" And, that's very important because what what I believe is your strength as a person. And anybody listening to this, if you believe something's wrong, something is wrong. If you believe something is right, something is right.
Mm,
And my gut feeling had always told me that my son would walk, even though loads of people said he would never walk and they didn't know
yeah.
what was going to become of him. Did he walk at 1 like everybody else? Absolutely not. Did he walk at 18 months or 2 years? No, he walked at 3. I had another son who was peg fed, started school in a wheelchair, peg fed and nappies in mainstream because I believed he had
Mm,
the same as you, me, or everybody else.
mm,
He's going over now at 3 o'clock to go and build Lego robotics for the Lego Wars in town next week in DCU.
wow.
That's
Yeah.
27 operations later because somebody believed. I think that's very
Yeah.
important
Yeah.
because you can sometimes get so caught up in these worlds, even like myself. Um, when I lost my womb and I got my bag, I seen my doctor who gave me the bag first, and um, and I'm for my 2 boys. I've been very privileged that I was able to get carers, so I was able to stay at home and nurse them in their time, and I remember when I got my bag, I at this time I just wanted to go and work. I just wanted somebody to allow me to do
Yeah.
something to get me out of the house, that kind of way, which
Mm,
is really strange because I wanted to be a nurse after I got my Leaving Cert results. That's all I wanted to be. But when I became a nurse in my own home, I wasn't able to do that. So you kind of learn, in different ways, the
mm,
way what you'd like to do and what you wouldn't like to do. And it was the fear of losing them was overcome by the fear of helping them. That's why I had my nervous breakdown. I was so scared that Declan was going to have another seizure or the whooping cough or meningitis or something was going to take him from me. I had
yeah.
felt that I had done so much to keep him alive, that kind of way.
Yeah.
And I was so afraid that there was only so much one person could take and another
Mm,
operation or something, something major. And I've been blessed to have some really good people around me, and 1 or 2 doctors not so much, who definitely didn't have my children's best interests at heart. But I honestly think, in hindsight, they had me. And if they didn't even though I fell, that kind of way, they had if you didn't have somebody like me behind your back
yeah.
who believed in you.
Yeah.
So even if Dylan didn't get, the system said he was going to walk, he still had somebody helping him to his feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have to remember that, because even with my bag, first man I met was the doctor. Second person I met was someone from social welfare telling me I can claim a disability. And I went, I'm not. I'm only after telling someone I'm going to go out and start getting my life together. You know what I mean? I'm only after
yes.
committing to losing 7.5 stone in my head. That I'm going to get my
Yeah.
mindset right, and I'm not going to be negative Nelly anymore. That stop keep giving me stuff to keep me back. And the bag was the kick in the butt. Not I didn't get it for a bad reason, like my bell perfect, but it was almost like, stop thinking you're going to do something and just do it.
Yeah.
Like that kind of way. I was
Yeah.
following you on your journey then, your running journey, which was a matter of coincidence.
Yeah.
On your running journey back then, and it was amazing. And I was losing weight. I tried a couple of places and different things, and um, I joined Weight Watchers, and I did the program where you count absolutely everything,
Right.
and I loved it. I loved everything about it. I loved the counting of everything. I loved all of it. I realized very quickly it wasn't just about food.
Yep.
Um, very quickly. If I didn't have the price of a washing machine, and this is where like Weighless Wonders came out, no money, the budgeting, I was eating processed food, or I was, if I did have the price of it, it was the idea of the washing machine taking 5 days and the 10 pile high of washing. There was like, there was people in queues as well, like, and they were all talking about going to exercise classes and doing all these things, but sure, I couldn't afford it, or I couldn't leave my home. So I always swore if I was ever given the opportunity to set up my own company, and I was never ever thinking about it actually. It was just always one of those,
Mm.
something you think in your head. And I
Yep.
always said that I would make sure that no woman would stand like the way I did in that queue. I always feel that there's always somebody. So we do provide all of that. But I lost my job last year. They just told us on an email on the 18th
Right.
of December. So we got no notice, no warning, no nothing. We got told, we'll say at 2 o'clock, and if you didn't see the email, tough. Everyone in the world got one at half four.
Wow.
Anyway, in Ireland, got one at half
Yeah.
four. So you had to come to terms with that yourself, and then for all of your members. So uh, well, that really got me because I cried, and my anxiety, and like, anxiety
Mm.
never goes away, Jean or James. If you suffer with mental health, you would be kidding yourself to think that anxiety goes away, because it just comes part and parcel, almost as a consequence
Yeah.
of a mental health. And I do believe that when I'm asked to speak about mental health, it's my number one thing. Doesn't go away. Doesn't
Yes.
go away. You're never. It's not that you're not cured. You're normal.
Yeah. Well, and I think there was, I can't remember now, in sense, I think I was before listening to someone talk about the thing of mental health versus, or sort of comparing it to mental illness, and there being it's actually, we can conflate the two sometimes, and sort of, and there's some very serious sort of mental illnesses where there's different scale and things, but mental health is someone is constant,
Different.
as you say. It's a
Yeah.
different thing, and it's a constant of a constant checking and rechecking, and I don't know if managing is the right word, or
I
just
know I would,
living with,
yeah. And I would also say it's like, for me, when I had my nervous breakdown, it's really strange because actually only last June, me and my husband went away together. And I think, do you know, do you know, like, someone says something and it really gets you off guard, but
Mm,
and you don't know, like, as a man, something can happen and you don't even realize it, but and you don't know what's going on around you because you just live in that moment. And for us,
yeah.
for 5 years, we just lived in the moment, like
Yes.
that kind of way. And we survived. Like, we just look back now, and the two of us say, oh my God, we went through what people wouldn't even go through till they're 80. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And some people don't even get through in a life in 5 years, and we survived it. But we'd actually talked about it, the mental health thing. And so I was diagnosed with bipolar while I was an inpatient in the hospital. So I got diagnosed with bipolar for a day, until my own GP came down the road and said, there's not a hope in hell that this girl has bipolar. Have you listened to what's happened to her in like the last few months? She's lost about half her body and organs, and you know what I mean, and
Yeah.
her children. And he said, I think she's suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. So I hadn't slept. So I'd gone into a psychosis from not sleeping, which I was very open about. I was convinced there was a doctor in the hospital trying to kill my son, which I wasn't too far wrong.
Wow.
She just was looking after him. And we took her from there, and he progressed. Once we took him from under that care, that doctor, he progressed immensely, immensely. And so once I started getting treatment for my, I would say, mental health.
Yeah.
So I came off of all of these medications for
Yeah.
illness. I actually became so much, for me personally, please don't anyone take this as a way, like, I've took the medication, I gained the weight
Mm.
from medication, and I would rather, I say this all the time, be a larger lady and mentally well than be thin and mentally sick. And I think I
Yeah.
always say to people, when people see me on the screen and my face is puffier, take that as in my anxiety is too high and that I'm on medication. But don't ever comment on my weight to me, that kind of way, because I
Mm.
think that I'm human and I always open up. But anxiety is the one thing, and that was anxiety driven for me back then. There was just too much going on. And
Mm.
it was the fear of who's next. Which one of us is
Yeah.
getting the knife next, or which hospital are we in next, that kind of a thing. And but my husband said to me last in June, it was, we were away, and he just randomly came out and said, we did it. you know and we were talking about mental illness, like, I just felt like the mental illness, as you said, And I said to him, what would be your biggest regret? And he said, well, I knew nothing about what was even happening to you when it was happening to you. I wasn't even educated on anything that was happening.
Mm.
So to be honest, I look back now and go, it was really badly dealt with because they were just telling me, but they were telling me, but you'd be diagnosed wrong the first time for a day. I know it was only for a day, but I was still diagnosed wrong and medicated just to make sure. So I was medicated for bipolar without even having bipolar for
Yeah.
3 months to make sure I didn't have bipolar. And then after I came off the medication of afterwards, then I had to make sure that I didn't go too high and too low. But I'm always the most happiest person in the world ever. And if you ever see me first thing in the morning, I'm even happier. You know that
Yeah.
kind of way. But in the evening, I just go flat. So I just go away. So and only for my GP though. And I've firmly 100 million%. I see a girl called Liz, and everybody needs a Liz in their life. I say to her all the time, and they do. For the last 2 years, I go and see somebody, and I don't know. I thought it was quite American at the time
Yes.
when somebody says they go and see somebody. But if somebody is listening to this and they are struggling, or they even have anxiety, or they're going through something, I would say go and find somebody who you like. Not my choice the second time to go and seek help for the trauma I was through. I decided to go outside of the mental health services. So I decided to go and seek someone who couldn't medicate me.
Yes.
That's a personal choice for me. But I went to talk to somebody, and which was Liz. And I now say that she's more than a counselor to me because I have opened a business all in the
Mm.
time. I have dealt with an extreme amount of trauma in the last 2 years, like extreme amount of trauma or grieving or a lot of things through her. She's almost like a life coach in a way.
Mm.
But if you find somebody, I've actually learned that even when losing my job, normally I would have run around the road to the doctor and go, "How am I going to get through this quiet period?
Yeah.
And what am I going to do when I was worried about the quiet part between Christmas and New Year's? How would I cope when I realized my job is gone, the thing you love the most? My anxiety was really bad. I thought I'd do something silly to myself, maybe. I didn't know. But I realized from talking to her and in the last while, and even on Christmas Eve, this is my first Christmas Eve. I text her and all. It was my first Christmas Eve not to be crying or sitting up and realizing that I'm so relaxed and I had it all done. I had everything ready and no anxiety driven about what may happen or may not happen or
Mm.
in my life or anyone controlling me or doing anything. I've learned to open my mouth, whether to a doctor or to other people, and don't allow people to bully or treat anybody unkind. And I'd say it. And if people don't like it, I think that's very important. We live in a society. I don't walk away from a situation. I would
Yeah.
talk about it. That's very important. I think it's very important. We've lost that, James. Definitely. I don't know where your listeners do be from, but I'm
Yeah.
from Niche. So if there was anything going on, like if me and my sister had an argument, my mother would bait you down the road, go down and sort it out.
Yeah.
But it's a whole new era of things, and I just see it on TikTok and Instagram of people. It's not talking anymore. You just
No.
walk away.
Yeah. I mean, I think to emphasize that point in a sense of the story and parts of the story you just shared there, in a sense of the things that have the things that you've had to go through personally for yourself, and then obviously with your children, is the concept and the idea that we're the ones that know better. You just be quiet and listen. And we're going to
Yes.
tell you everything. And what we say is right. And you just follow along because it's just easier if you just listen to us. We're the ones who are in the right. But as you say, though, and it's not necessarily, I don't know, obviously, the people involved, and we can come across this people sometimes not whether the how busy they are or the stress they're under themselves, but the ability to challenge back and actually
Mm,
go, you know what, as much as you may respect the person for what they have got to, where they have got to in their life, the fact that you were saying for a number of times in the example you were saying about one of your sons thinking, you just knew, you kind of felt something wasn't quite right. And it's like, yeah, I didn't go to medical school. No, and I don't know,
I
but
mean, on
I
my
can
second
sense
son, they
something.
withheld the information from me. So
Yeah.
I was a mother to the who was to the extremes. So I had my middle son, they withheld the information from me. So I had a child who wouldn't sit up, who wouldn't do anything, who
Mm,
was basically suffering from what I would call floppy baby syndrome.
mm.
I was holding his head, still feeding him with his chin at 9 months. And they kept putting it down to I was young, naive mother from the country. And I was
Wow.
trying to get him to sit up and he was doing nothing. And it was only after I'd gone to see the same boy who came in his slipper, the same doctor who came in his slippers to deliver my son Declan, like when I was, and I had him at 31 weeks, 9 weeks earlier, nearly, that's how
Mm,
wrong I was done. He came from his own house to make sure that I was looked after. Um, he told me, I said to him, please, please, I was banging my head. I was crying to me
mm.
nanny in heaven, saying, don't do this to me. Just stop making it out that it's me. I
Yeah.
know, since the day he was born, by the way, it was wrote in his file, Mom is hysterical, because they
Wow.
didn't let me see him for 3 days, and it's wrote in his file and everything. And he told me, he said, you don't have to tell me that there's something wrong. I already know. That was his exact words to me. And I had scans. I got it. He had organized the afternoon an MRI, and um, an MRI, and I had it done on the Monday, and I knew very soon. And he had me straight into Enable Ireland, which were absolutely
Mm.
magnificent to us, and every one of them were magnificent to us over the years.
Yeah. No, it's I can see now in a sense of, and you said you're going back to what your husband said last year. He
Yeah,
says a sense of we did it, and that, and also when the times when you're telling the story about opening up those doors and sort of like
yeah.
taking that moment in a sense of when you said, right,
Mm.
this is, you're very clear in a sense of right now, this is,
Is it?
it's almost defining moment in a sense.
It
So
was.
just so I'm getting this right, when the obviously you were fortunate enough, or I don't know if in a sense of unfortunate or fortunate, the fact that your job went, and it, the fact that these things
And
put you
two
into the
girls who
position
lost
to
their
do where
jobs.
you are. Yeah.
Yeah, the two girls who lost their jobs, so they arrived at my front door, and I remember like one of them was doing my hair, and she was in the middle of doing my hair, and we all knew this message was coming out. Three of us had lost our jobs, and I was sitting there going, I can't do this. I we can't do this. And they left. And I remember I just kept saying, but they've lost their jobs too. But they were so worried about me, not about my mental health, because I had given it such passion and they knew.
Yeah.
And
Right.
they had knew. Um, and I remember I came out and I went into the kitchen. My husband would kill me for saying this, but he was really upset. And I remember looking at him and he's like, and one of the staff members had wrote me this beautiful message. It's your time to fly. Just before we went on our 15-minute Zoom to get sacked, basically, right? Well, it wasn't
Yeah.
that, but it was just 15
Yeah.
minutes. I remember looking at him going, we have like honestly, like I'm so like we're up at this stage. I'm after being through so bleeding much. It's job. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
and I just, we have been through so much. Like what the hell? Like cop onto yourself. And now, and to be fair, when I seen him, and he was saying to me like, "I've never seen you give something so much passion." I knew that I didn't just love this. This was something he was just scared was going to break me again, and I was upsetting him.
Sure.
So I just turned around and looked at him and said, I'm taking 500 euro on my savings and starting up my own company. What? And I said, well, sure, you can't be that much hard about it. I said, if that's the case, and I never took any money out of my savings. I've actually never took any money out of savings. I was due whatever I got off of
Yeah.
Weight Watchers at the time. And I was really fortunate that I had the most amazing friend. And I went out and I was setting up on my own, and I remember I rang my lovely friend Sarah and I said to her, like, I'm going to go out and do this on my own. And it's Caraldine's Weighless Wonders, and I'm going to set up this brand. And I'm going to do everything I didn't want in the queue.
Mm.
That's what I'd said. Everything I don't want in that queue, I'm going to do. I was unsure at first. We were kind of using my fitness pal and NutriCheck and stuff like
Yep.
that at the start, starting off. And obviously some people weren't happy with that, like because you're kind of, you know what I mean. But like, I mean, I had 3 weeks to turn something around, or
Yeah.
4 weeks to turn something around. Do you know what I mean? I'm not Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
I'm definitely a force to be reckoned with, but I'm not a Wonder Woman. So I had 4 weeks and Christmas. You know what I mean, for my children, which I didn't do. I only took Christmas Day off. That was the only day I took down the tree on the 27th and cried every single minute of it. So Sarah came on board, then Suzanne came on board, and we were just doing virtuals because of COVID. And then it was brilliant because we went out to in persons. And then I had a couple of other staff come on board. And now we're doing in persons in Cork, Wexford. We've been in Drogheda, but we've left Drogheda, so it just didn't work out. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And we're in 3 classes in Kildare. We're in Dublin in a few different ones. I do virtuals, we do corporates. And I do think it's really important, and I do think that I'm good at what I do. I've been through
Mm.
so much, and when somebody comes to me and says, "Oh, my thyroid's out. Oh, I'm on this medication," I, you know, I'm actually getting emotional thinking about it. I had this most amazing person come to me. Um, she came to me she was the very first member in the door when I opened. I'm actually getting emotional. The
That's
doors
okay.
of Brew Red. When I opened the doors of Brew Red in the morning time, and she opened the door, and I didn't know she was unwell when she came to me. So I remember she came to me, and I was lovely to her, and oh, it's so nice to see you, and I was so kind to her, like just as you normally would.
Yeah.
And she had mentioned the medication she was on, and I was on the exact same medication. So I gave her the fifth at the time when I was sick, and I had given her all the hits, tips, and things. But I don't know, James, if you've ever been on mental health medication.
No,
But
I've
you
not.
sleep, eat, dream, and think about food while you're eating today's food. All right.
Mm.
So it's non-stop sugar craving. Okay. And then
Okay.
your metabolism has slowed down. So like I gained, to put it into perspective for you, I gained 5 stone in 3 months.
Wow.
So it's like really rapid.
Mm.
That's what it is like. Um, so uh I didn't realize at the time. I knew she was a bit off, but I don't get me wrong, I would have never said she was sick until a few months ago she came back to me, a different woman. And when she came back to me, a different one, she brought somebody with her. But the thing was, she came back and kept saying to me, "You got me well because I listened to what you taught me, and I started taking my medication. I started doing everything you told me, and I got her well." And it was nothing to do with food, and it was nothing. It was just being empathetic. That's
Yeah.
all it was.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important that we miss this. And even within my work as a job, my work as a weight loss consultant, like people pick up the phone to me and we could be talking about something that went on with your mother, or you know,
Yep.
it doesn't necessarily have to be that this. um and obviously, the person that you can tell probably from the call that I am, you know, I don't just stop here. I'm also on the Dublin Association for People with Stoma Bags. I look after, I'm a coordinator on the Dublin Ostomy group. So and it's pretty much mostly men and women who are all older than me. So imagine being 60 and waking up one morning and you have a colostomy bag, or you know, you probably might be more accepting if you have cancer, but men aren't as accepting, especially
Mm.
when they can get diverticulitis. But I'm a great advocate for standing in front of my class and saying prevention is better than cure. You know
Mm.
what I mean? And late night eating, and I'm big into gut health, and you know, I don't, I'm big into kind of doctor, can I have a prescription is my motto. But no matter when I go to the doctor, I don't know, but they just keep giving prescriptions, but they never tell me that turmeric and ginger and all
Yeah.
of these really healthy methods can help my inflammation or help my body and help me. Instead, I get a prescription.
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and that and that kind of and that's what makes me different than the rest. I've no problem helping somebody and being empathetic to say, I know what it's like to suffer with this, I know what it's
Yeah.
like to suffer with that. And most of all, I think it's very important, if you have a floor like my floor that has seen so much,
Yeah.
that you can stay on the floor. I keep saying this all the time, and my children are going to look back at some stage and seeing a mother who's had her knees cut off more times than anything,
Yeah.
and that she could just keep going, and that she made something of herself. In my company may not work out, but
Yeah.
last night they seen me leave my house to go to college for the very first time. They seen that
Mm.
I came up with something got to do with innovation. Innovation, like,
Mm.
and their mother in the same sentence.
Yeah.
They, you know, they're this is what people will see. They won't ever remember Mammy cried, Mammy helped
Yeah.
get me to school. They won't ever remember the thought that I did, but they'll know, and they've seen me like be sick over the last couple of years on and off. They've seen me lose my job. They've been old enough to remember me setting up my own business and winning an award. You know, my youngest son, even though like he does have a couple of disabilities, he's so proud of me, and he's always like, Caraldine Nolan, the award-winning Weighless Wonders. Like,
Yeah.
he's a really good humor. But that makes my heart
Yeah.
beam because it's because of him that I like
Yeah.
of all of my children. But it's because of the struggles that I've had to
Yeah.
go through, and and it's people. He doesn't realize it, or even my children don't realize it, or other people don't realize it. But all of them people are building you or me into people who we are, and that situation or that 5-year period in my life built me.
Yeah. And it kind of like, I was mentioning it earlier, in a sense of the whole thing of the things that we can say things that are happening to us, or a bit cliche, but that's, or that are happening for us. And it's that thing of,
Yes.
well, it's that thing of, and there's so many situations where you think we wouldn't wish it on ourselves or anyone to have to go through those things. We really wouldn't. And it's kind of like, but there comes a point where you almost have to accept what
Yes.
has been, what's happened, what's happening, and go, well, and what you've done, and go, well, actually, well, if I've had to gone through all I've gone through, survive what I've gone through, I'm going to come out blooming stronger. And everyone's going to either want to hear about it but learn from it. And it's that sort of, I don't know the
Or
phrase,
even
like cruel
I don't know.
twist
I
of
think
fate.
yes, and for me, like the second time round of going to speak to a counsellor. So the first time I was, they kept telling me why, which I don't want to kind of, they
Yeah,
kept
of course.
telling, they were putting it down my throat why they felt I had my nervous breakdown. And it's not really fair for me to say in case my children do listen to it. But I honestly believe that whether they were right or wrong, I wasn't ready to come to terms with that yet. And I
Yeah.
do believe that sometimes that's a big reason for mental health is that you have to be ready to,
Yeah.
you can acknowledge that it's happened. And if I look back on the amount of trauma that my body has endured, which is a lot, by the way, or that my children have endured, 99% of my trauma was caused by other people's actions. So,
Yeah.
like doctors feeling I didn't need to know about something in my son, making me believe it was in my head. Another
Mm.
doctor, you're feeling the choking of your child off the mother, feeling it off me. Little things that were not true. Like, I nearly had my son taken off me the day he was diagnosed with whooping cough by social workers in a hospital with my husband present, despite the child going blue, and he nearly died of me that night. And I had to go through the whole trauma of that, sitting in a room with people telling me I
Mm.
was losing my marbles. He's not going blue, she's imagining it, and then a PCR test coming back positive, and my son nearly dying that night.
Wow.
This was before COVID. And so I can tell you that was the last time that was the night I gave in. But that's trauma.
Yeah.
That's trauma. That's words. And when people tell you you're not a good mother or you shouldn't have had another child or anything, you don't know that. I could
Mm.
have raised Ireland's next biggest architect or robotics, 3D, AVI. He's gone
Yeah.
into town and he's only 12. I've given him the same start, or any of them, the same start as
Mm.
anybody else. And I do believe in this country in particular, carers and mothers are the most underestimated
Mm.
women in the world.
Mm. Mm.
I
Yeah.
do believe it. I do believe that. And I believe that especially carers
Yeah.
should run the country because in all I've done in a year, everyone keeps saying, how do you do that? How do you do so much? How did you get so much done? But like it's such a weird life. You learn for years to do something in case you don't know if you're gonna be in hospital tomorrow. So you can't just say, do the washing, change the
Yeah.
bed clothes another day. You can't. So you live a life
Yeah.
of get it done now. Don't think about it, just do it. I know there's a great lad in Murphy's thing, but honest to God, that's the same. Just don't think about it, just do it because you don't know where tomorrow you could be in hospital for 3 weeks. So,
Yeah.
but that's the way I live my life. So it almost nearly causes a separate illness all on its own, like an OCD style illness.
Sure.
Like that kind of way. So this year I opened up Weighless Wonders, as I said, then we virtual, in person. Uh, the corporates, obviously we do groups as well, and then I've created a members area. So we created like a cash in terminal, So we use the Leos for this. So I went to the Leo. So if anybody is doing anything, I would recommend starting off, go to the Leo.
Yep.
So I went to the Leo and we created this cash-in style terminal. Then we created a WIT system. So then I realized WIT system is like a weigh-in terminal, but we had done a lot of research before we did it. And we found out that if we want to develop our own, it would cost like 250, 300,000. I didn't have this. So
Yeah.
I did my proper research. I was like, let's do some. So we kind of developed our own and it really worked out well. And it sinks into this like cool new members area, which I showed you just there before, and
Mm.
it's everything. But I designed then a food tracker. And then in the midst of me doing my food tracker, I was at this event for women and in town in Google. And I happened to talk to this girl who was from Enterprise Ireland, and I'm sure,
Mm.
and it was just, oh my God, it was like the most random just talking to her.
Mm.
And she was like, she was after meeting me at the awards, and she said, oh my God, you're doing amazing, what a year, and all this. And she said, so what's next? And I happened to just mention food tracker, just like I'm saying to you now.
Mm.
Oh, we're working on a food tracker and it's all of this. I realized there's none in Ireland. So actually, Ireland don't have one.
Right.
And I didn't realize that at that moment. So I just said to her in passing, I've developed a food tracker. And I said to her, now, you know me. Now, so everyone, you kind of get the gist of me. I say it like it is and everything's a joke. But it's like I always say, well, there's a bit of calving in me. Do you know what I mean? So I just say, wrecks my head or annoys me that I have to go and sell another brand if I go out. So when I go out to my classes, they're coming to me, but then they're paying for another brand on top of
Yeah.
me, and I'm promoting another brand. And although it may be good and it's working, it's not my brand.
Yep.
So we were developing the thing. It's working. Our members are using it, and we just have another two little bits to go on it, like a barcode scanner and a recipe builder. But we have a meal tracker on it, and products are all on it, and it's working. But she rang me and said, "Do you know there's none in Ireland? And can you find out if yours can go onto other places? Like, can other people use this if they wanted to?" So I actually got a place on the New Frontiers program based on that. Like, I might be able to allow PTs, um,
Wow.
other coaches have
Yep.
this on their website, and it will look like it's their own instead of members coming to them and signing up and the money going out of Ireland. It's going to England, like when it's going to any of these other places, and it'll keep money inside the economy with this development. Now, this all happened like just in the last year. So this is all in 1 year. So I started last night and it's just amazing opportunity, absolutely amazing. I was there with 21 other people last night. And I can tell you, it was from coffees to the new underwear brands to AVI and Meta universes, amazing things, like
Yeah.
absolutely.
In a sense of your story now and where you are now, in a sense of personally, and then with your business. If I'm hearing you right, in a sense of is there's to me there's this sort of now acknowledgement of what you've been through, and a sense of all the trauma you've had, and a sense of from personally, and then and obviously within your children as well. But it's now a massive fuel for you, in a sense of what you're trying to build, and in a sense of like, and correct me if I'm wrong, in a sense of you've decided you like, well, I'm going to go into business for yourself, because you say something to your brand that you can stand over, you're proud of. But it sounds to me that it's much more than a business. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't a case of, well, I'm just going to set up a business so I can make a living. It was like, no,
Oh
no, no.
God, if I was doing that now, I would tell you I would definitely not be here.
Well, it's that thing, in a sense of like, I don't know if purpose is the right word. It's the way that what I'm hearing. I don't know
I
if,
think helping people is just
yeah,
my thing, and I
yeah,
really do think that I love helping people, and
mm,
it's almost like continuing that caring aspect. Do you
yeah,
know that kind of way? I mean, when I helped that girl that day in the hospital, just going back to that, like if you think about it, all I did was helped her by saying something really nice. And that was the day that changed it, because instead of being grumpy or grouchy or feeling sorry, I actually was real. And in my head, I
mm.
missed that person. I missed that, and it made me think. And the answer, by the way, is there is more wheels in the world.
Love it.
There's more wheels but I say every time we'd keep going around in circles if that was the case. So it's so
Yeah.
important to keep opening every door, because every door is 100% full of something new, including the press door. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
It is
absolutely.
right down to that, because even the door, like, there's nobody going to say that this business will work out, you know, that
No.
kind of way, and it may not work out, and people are going to come and people are going to go, and you need to have clients, and there's such it's such a it's and COVID, and now this new cost of living crisis has put my industry definitely into question. um but even if it doesn't continue, which I'm pretty sure it will, and I'd be very happy for it to continue, I think I will always continue to keep building and doing something new, and taking people under my wing, and feeling really hard done by, or really like I'm always going to be that person if someone decides to leave, or like I'm going to be that person. I think you have to accept in life as well. Some things are going to happen. You're not going to like it. How you react is on you. So on me. So if I'm like, I torment myself something fierce, but then after about 3 days, I just say, it's on you. Stop it. Like, you're tormenting yourself. You're not tormenting anybody else.
Yeah.
Like, I torment myself something fierce. I beat myself up about situations or different things, and there's no need. That
Yeah.
kind of, and I say there's a lot of people who do that, and we can't
Oh,
change it.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely one of the most common things, when I talk to people, whether it be from people I've spoken to on the podcast or people just in general that I'm working with, that sort of we're great at making up the scenario in our head that's very unlikely to happen, or if it did happen, it's the worst case scenario type thing. And it's the things that, a lot of it then comes down to that worry of what other people are going to think, what other people are going to say, that fear of judgment, that fear, but it's, and from my experience though, once you do start to, and the thing sounds very similar to your experiences though, when you've gone and talked to people at those events, 99% of them are absolutely really friendly, really lovely, happy to help, happy to engage,
Mhm.
And the one person who isn't that nice, you never have to talk to them again, because they're not your person, they're not the person that you were trying to attract, and they're not for you. So you can just work with the other 99, and impact it that way.
That's really important.
Yeah.
And no matter what happens, and life's always going to knock you to your knees, even to your
Yeah.
ankles. I tell
Yeah.
people, I was on my ankles, on my ankles. I was that far down. I was so low. That's how bad it was.
Mm.
I've
Yeah.
got up and fell probably once or twice since then.
Yeah.
But you have to keep going. Like,
Yeah.
you can stay in the depths of despair and feel sorry for yourself and give selfish, or and almost like punishing myself for feeling that and I went through a phase where I was even like probably too strong, that kind of a
Mm.
way. And I was probably in survival mode then. um Situations, it doesn't matter what the situations are. Like, it can be in a workplace environment, it can be like what the situation that I was in, it can be like you might be sick for a period of time, it could be any situation. People go through grief
Yep.
for everything. You all right? Oh, you're there, sorry.
Yeah.
And people go through grief for many different things, and they don't class it as grief because somebody didn't die.
Yeah.
And your feelings can genuinely, I've learned that, like, from Liz, nobody has to die for you to experience the loss of something, you know what I mean? And like, for me, I had kind of loss of quite a few things in 5 years, but I couldn't make something of it or go on to do it. You know, that kind of way. And one thing I knew I didn't want to do was be a nurse by the end of it. I can assure you that. That was the one thing I knew I didn't want to do.
Oh my God. One of the questions I do love to ask anyone that comes on to chat to me is, I love and find a great sort of power and sometimes strength out of quotations and phrases and things like that. So I'd love to know if there's anything, whether it be a quote or a phrase, that you have important to you.
There's probably a few, but one I always kind of I say it without even realizing it, but probably mean it, and I use my hand when I say it. No, let all the bad luck go with it. I don't know what it is. Bad luck to you is probably not the same as it is to somebody else, and I think that's very important. And the other thing is, the most beautiful thing a woman can wear is her smile. And I always think it doesn't matter who or where you are. It is like a mask. But sometimes I am in really bad form, and the minute I smile, everybody in the whole room smiles. And I do think that's important. Like, nobody needs to know my trauma for the 40 minutes or that I'm in a class or an hour I'm in a class. But as soon as I smile, it you can be helping somebody that day. I think that's very important. So that's I love them two quotes, but there's obviously a load of a bit like
Yeah,
yourself. But the smile one seems to come up quite a lot because I'm quite a smiley person.
yeah.
So it has me all the wrinkles. And yeah, I do. And I don't know, I've noticed I say that, like, all the bad luck with it a lot. But and it's in relation to the smallest things. But I said it to a woman the other day and she said, God, and I said, well, bad luck can be absolutely something horrific, or just having a couple of extra drinks more than you wanted on a calorie allowance. You know what I mean? It's just let all the bad luck away. So, and it
Love
kind
it.
of lets it go out the door. I think
Yeah,
that's important because
yeah,
it can be very short lived, a lot of things.
yeah. I love that. Love those two. Again, I never heard them before, so I love that when I get hear something new. So I'm gonna next time I'm gonna probably catch myself saying let the bad luck go with it, and
No, let
I'll
all the bad luck go with
let
it. And you have to do
let
the hand movement. Let all the
okay,
bad luck
let
go
all the
with it because it's you're throwing it
back.
over your shoulder.
Love it, love it.
So it's behind you.
I love that. Are there any then people that have influenced you, whether they be private or in the public eye?
Do you know I met a girl a couple of years ago, um, when I first started my business. She's been amazing to me, and very kind to me. And I will say I really look up to her. Sharon from Peachy Lean. I don't know if you've ever heard of her,
Yeah,
Sharon Keegan.
yeah.
Just seems to be one of those powerhouse women who I don't know. I love women in business, so it's just my
Mm,
thing. So I'm not anything against men. I'm in the
no.
chambers and all the Leos, by the way, and I love them all. And I do love the do love them, but I really do look up to her. I love her business ethic around everyone and everything, and the whole helping in the community. It's just a really big thing for me. And you know, I like her, and I like that she goes and speaks at events because she is an inspirational person, and I do think
Mm,
that's very important. A lot of people forget that they have been extremely blessed to not have to go through anything. And it is those people that are most critical to people like me who've had to endure trauma, and they don't accept it. They want you just to get on with things, but they don't accept that you've probably come from somewhere that's another person like me did not, I don't know, but they didn't survive it. They,
yeah.
they they didn't do it, that kind of way. And people forget that. I think that's
Mm,
but I look to Sharon really quite a lot. She's definitely a very motivational person. I'm not into celebrities or
yeah,
anything like this, so I'm not
yeah.
into anything like that. And I don't do. I'm not into looking at Instagram because I used to go onto Instagram, to be honest with you, James, and I followed a load of people on Instagram until the day a couple of people started saying to me, "I love your Instagram." And I realized it was fake because before I'd gone on it, I had to tell my children to be quiet.
Yeah,
So if I'm telling my children you can't come into your own kitchen and you have to be quiet, I have to do this. That's not real.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. And I what I like about the thing where you said about say Sharon from Peachy Lean, and as I say, I would follow her and myself in a sense of her story and
Oh,
her business as well. And it's the one word that I don't know if you said it there or that strikes me is just you said it there. It's just it's real versus what you maybe weren't doing on Instagram. It's like it's not
yeah, coming
um
on dolled up, or like I
no.
see her and she comes on and she's the hat on her and the makeup not on. But I was at an event and it was really funny because she won't mind me saying this because I say it for her. And I said, "Well, where's your shoes?" And she had a suit on and runners, like, but they were like funky runners. And she says, "No, I'm not doing that to my back." And I just went, "You know what? Go you." And
Yeah,
I just
dead
thought
right.
that's what it's about. Um, she left the event in Galway and drove home for her son's football match. So she did her talk left and got home. To me, that's real. That's
Yeah.
somebody that's trying to keep it all together. And I just think to aspire to somebody, her children are a little bit younger, she's somebody, and if you went to her and said to her, like, this is my business, she roots for you.
Yeah.
You get very little people who root for you nowadays. I think that's
Mm,
important. If you root for somebody, people always remember. Like, I remember every single person who's helped me the last 2 years. I don't think there's a
mm,
person I don't forget. I haven't called out. I even met like one of the ladies last night who were kind of set our business together, and instantly, let's get a picture for Instagram. Like, because we had set up like last year or whatever together. And I think that's really important that you have to, we miss, this is missing. People are
yeah.
forgetting to tap people on the back and say, oh God, I love that. Or sharing something belong to somebody else, just in case it's like my material, or it's like something that someone else may do, or I don't know what it is. I just find that really, or it has to be a collab. No, it does not.
No, 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 no. Yeah,
And never be afraid to tell someone they're doing a good job, or I love that. I think because
yeah,
I get loads of people saying, "Oh my God, I love your recipes," but you never comment on them. You never tell me that you like
yeah.
you like the recipe, that you've made the recipe, or anything on Instagram or Facebook. But you have people who tell you, and it's a bit disheartening sometimes because you could have put it like, like, shares, and comments. If you're not buying something or using the service, is actually helps promote a business, but it costs nothing.
I know. Yeah.
You know that for being a business
Oh
owner
yeah,
yourself.
and I think
You'd have someone say, "Love your content," and you're like,
yeah,
"Oh, do you? Didn't
yeah.
know."
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things where there's it's the funny thing in a sense of using it, of essentially your online being your office, and across the various different platforms. I would use Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. That'd be the three I use, and then I'll chat to people or I'll meet up with someone, whether it be in person or on a virtual event, and they say, "Oh, I've been following you for ages," and I'll be like, "I didn't even know of you." But I think that's the world
Well, like me
of
saying to
online.
you,
Yeah,
"I've been fun. How's the
yeah,
racing going?" The minute you
yeah,
came on the running, so but that is like a bit like, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
well,
But it's also, I think that's, to me, it's kind of like and sometimes is where this is where sometimes I see it with that is um I'm what I'm trying to do with whatever platforms I'm using is to promote hopefully a message and hopefully a way of being. And
yeah,
it's almost like if it helps someone, but there's no likes and comments and shares, that doesn't matter. It's the if it's the change in the person that's
yeah,
seeing it and watching it, then I've done what I set out to do. And it's kind of like sort of always the sort of recalibrating, going, doesn't matter if it's not gone quote unquote viral. It's the purpose behind it is the reason why I'm doing it. So that's where I keep going when I'm in things like that.
it's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's really good.
no worries, perfect. Um, Caraldine, it has been amazing to talk to you and to hear your story, and how you've taken all of what um, you've worked through and to put it to what you're trying to do now. It is inspiring and incredible to hear, and I'm really glad that I've heard it and known there's more to come. I just have one more question for you
Yeah, go for it.
before we finish off, and that's what's important for your future.
I kind of say I lived life the opposite way around. Like, so I kind of did all my illness. That's what I tried to tell myself. I did all my
Yeah,
illness when I was younger, had my children really young, um, and I'm really happily married. But I always tell my husband when we get into it, like when I get a bit older, we're going to travel the world. I know that
yeah,
seems really weird to people, but I was like, I had my children really young or whatever, so that's what I wanted to do. I think it's important to see the world because
yeah,
I've lived some of it, that kind of way. But to see it, and we do kind of go to different places and stuff like that. But I do think that's important. So I'd love to. I'm not going to say retire because I can't ever imagine
yeah,
me like not being busy. But I would love to be in a place where I'm comfortable enough to say, there's like, let's go to couple of cities or something like this. I don't know what we go on holidays, but I don't know. It's in my head that I'll see the world when I'm older. It's just
Love it.
I could be already seeing the world and I don't
Yeah,
realize it, that kind of way. But yeah, it is. That's
brilliant.
what I want to do, and I want to enjoy my husband and a more. I don't know, my children will grow up. I don't know. A lot of people,
Yeah,
I don't know, probably say by that time they'll kill them, but I suppose I have so much admiration for mine because we've been through so much.
yeah. That's lovely to hear, and I think, yeah, and I think if anything, I think for what you have been through together, it clearly has probably made you stronger.
Oh, absolutely. Do you know what? I kind of always say this to people all the time, but I thought like when I got married, I
Yeah,
mean, I did love him, but did you like in
yeah,
my head because we've been through so much. You grow a different style of affection, and it's a
sure.
very different type of love. You have to learn to love somebody when they're sick, when they're cross, when they're angry, and you have to learn to love somebody who is quite distant, like that kind of way. So
Mm,
you remember for 10 months, one of my children was in hospital. So, like, you are engaging and nonstop talking about medical, medical, medical. This is not what we signed up for. We were supposed to be like
mm,
doing great things, this kind of way, and being all in love and having babies and going as a family of this and this, and this is what the world tells me too. Yeah, a gentleman's family when you two children, except for we're not like gentlemen, we're nearly killing each other, this kind of a way. And
yeah,
and I do think you grow great admiration. And for my husband, because remember, he had the children, which was mostly probably gauged by me, but then he had a wife who, before she was 30, lost her womb, and I have a physical disability, obviously, with my bag, and you have to accept all of that. And I think for me, that takes somebody really special to continue to love somebody like that, and to allow me to, when everything went wrong with work, he allowed me just to sit back and say, "You want to go and like become the breadwinner or the owner of our family," and that's what I did through COVID. And if you want to do this or you want to do that, that takes somebody, I think, quite special to do that and to say, yeah, you know what, she's been through this. She's not this weak person that she maybe once was. I think, I have a lot of admiration for
yeah.
somebody that could do that. And I've kind of, as I wrote on his Valentine's Day card today, James, I'm blessed.
I love it. No, it's no. I think it's a that's a fabulous sort of acknowledgement and tribute to yourselves. I think as a couple, and I think of what you've been able to go through
Absolutely.
and build even stronger together. So I think it's fabulous. Um, I would really obviously love for anyone who's been listening to this to continue to support you and what you
Yeah.
do. And we will
Thank you.
obviously make sure that any of the where they can find you online is shared within the notes. But if you want to give a shout out now of where people can find you online, that would be great.
Absolutely. So they can pop onto our website is weighlesswonders.ie. So it's WEIGHLESS wonders.ie. And the whole idea is, yes, it's for weight loss, but the way less is like to weigh less on your shoulders. So be it budgeting, exercise, fitness, yoga, meditation, so that you come away and you weigh less after your knowledge, more so than the scales. It doesn't always have to be about the scales.
Love it. Brilliant. That's fantastic. I know. I love that. Loved what it means. So that's way less. Say it again.
Wonders. So
Way
the
less
way less
wonders.
wonders. So the
Brilliant.
wonder is like, how am
Yep.
I going to weigh less? And
Love it.
that's what it is.
Brilliant. And they say the links will be shared in the notes. So
Yeah,
make sure you click on that and follow Caraldine and her journey, and look at all the websites, and something may be there for you. Caraldine, again, thank you so much for
no
joining me
problem,
today.
Jess. No problem at all.
Thank you for listening to What's Important to You. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, and share. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Again, you can follow me at James Dean Coaching on Facebook and Instagram. Connect with me on LinkedIn, or find out more about me on jamesdeancoaching.com.